Hey everybody, welcome back to the Court of Random Opinion. My name is Lauren Neidigh. I'm sorry for the delay, but I'm going to show you why that happened. This is what I was working with. Yeah. So unless you guys can interpret that, it took me a minute to figure things out, but I did finally get it figured out. And so we have all the lawsuit documents that I downloaded. Just for some background on this case, it was filed in 2020 in the Los Angeles Superior Court by a former employee of Wayfarer. And the documents, when you go to LA Superior Court, the documents, they charge out the ass. So if it's a long case or, something like that, it's going to cost a lot of money. Luckily, I had some really nice people the other day had Venmoed me some money just as a donation. So I was able to use that money to get these documents. So in a way, you guys paid for those too. So I just want to thank everyone for being here with me. And we'll get into it. I am going to eventually post these documents, but I had to get them in order. And then there's a couple that I downloaded that I'm actually not going to read tonight because I, wanted to trim it down a little bit just so it's more reasonable, because the size of the file with all the documents combined would be insane. Hey everybody. Hey Slug. What's going on? So yeah, we'll get into it. Like I said, I don't have all the documents to show you tonight. I did not download every single document because some of those documents from LA Superior Court are like $40. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. But I have everything major. So. And then once I do upload these documents, they're going to go on my Patreon. You do not have to be a paid member to access them. You can be a free member and you can download them from there. I like Patreon because the notifications are more reliable than YouTube's. So that's why I'm trying to direct more people there. That way, whenever I go live or post a new video or something like that, you'll get the notifications for sure. But yeah, all right. And just before we get started, thank you, Anna Banana. I saw that earlier. Thank you for becoming a channel member. And Rochelle Taylor, thank you for becoming a channel member. If you go to my YouTube page and you head over to the members tab, you'll be able to see some members only posts. And yesterday I did add a little video of my dog dancing on there. So, that's nice. All right. So let's get into the initial part of this lawsuit, the first complaint. Like I said, that's what I was dealing with earlier, so I did end up getting it to work, though. MB Shotzi, thank you for the membership. I appreciate that. Sorry if I missed that earlier. Can I call myself a Termination cunt? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. All right. So I've been seeing lots of articles, headlines, whatever, referring to Justin Baldoni's dark past, racist past, whatever. However, I had never actually seen these lawsuit documents, so I decided to go look them up myself, buy them myself, and go over them myself. I have not actually read through these yet. I wanted to do that with you guys. And just a reminder, in case you're new here, I am not a lawyer. I have my bachelor's in psychology, my master's in criminology. I did some grad school work in forensic psychology, but I'm not a lawyer, so there's going to be some legalese stuff in here that I simply can't explain. I just want to be very transparent about that. So, but I am going to hand these over to my buddy Omar, the Tilted Lawyer from YouTube, and he will go over the legal aspect of it. So I'll be doing we're just going to go through kind of the meat of it together, and then he'll explain some of the law stuff. Oh, I wanted to... Please shout out our Colonel Kurtz, who protested Blake at the Simple Favor premiere today. I saw that she is at the premiere, and then I saw her sign and her shirt. So yeah, if you guys want to see Colonel Kurtz and everything that she's doing, go over to her YouTube page or her Twitter page, where she's got pictures of it. It's pretty cool. I don't want to show the pictures here because I want to make sure I drive traffic to her. So if you want to see that, it's pretty funny. Head over to her page and check it out. Thank you, mods, for being here. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's read the initial complaint, shall we? This complaint was filed by Shane Norman, and this was back in 2020. So the actual complaint was filed There's probably a date at the bottom. We'll get to that. But it's been at least, or almost 5 years at least, you know. Okay. The parties, plaintiff Shane Norman is and at all times relevant hereto, was a resident of the county of Los Angeles. He is informed and believes and alleges that at all times relevant hereto, defendant Wayfair Entertainment was and is a California limited liability company doing business at, we're not going to get into that. That's not a secret, guys. That's public information, but I still try not to read addresses and stuff. All right. Plaintiff is informed and believes and based thereupon alleges that at all times relevant hereto, defendant Wayfair Studios, here and after referred to as WSL, was and is a Delaware LLC doing business at, and there's the address. WEL and WSL are hereinafter collectively referred to as employers. Plaintiff is informed and believes and based thereupon alleges that at all times relevant hereto, employers owned and operated a private entertainment company. Okay. Plaintiff is informed and believes and based thereupon alleges that at all times relevant hereto, defendant Justin Baldoni was and is an individual residing in the county of Los Angeles and was employer's owner or co-owner, manager, corporate agents, managing agent, supervisor, and or employee. The true names and capacities, whether individual, corporate, associate, or otherwise, of the defendants named herein as Does 1 through 20, inclusive, are unknown to plaintiff at this time, and therefore said defendants are sued by such fictitious names. Okay. We're going to skip over the rest of the parties. Alter ego, agency, successor, and joint employer. Plaintiff is informed and believes, and based thereon alleges, that there exists such a unity of interest and ownership between employers and Does 1 through 20, that the individuality and separateness of defendants have ceased to exist. So what is that supposed to mean? Like human centipede style? Or plaintiff is informed and believes, and based thereon alleges, that despite the formation of purported corporate existence, employers and Does are in reality one and the same, including, but not limited to, because A, employers are completely dominated and controlled by one another, and Does who personally committed the frauds and violated the laws as set forth in this complaint, and who have hidden and currently hide behind defendants to perpetrate frauds, circumvent statutes, or accomplish some other wrongful or inequitable purpose. Employers and Does 1 through 20 derive actual and significant monetary benefits by and through one another's unlawful conduct. All right. And by using each other as a funding source. I'm going to skim over some of this more legalese stuff, guys, because I want to get to the bulk of the complaints. You can see the document I have next is a very long document, so we're going to skim through some of it. Factual allegations. On or about March 1st, 2020, employers hired plaintiff to work as the general manager of Man Enough, one of the Wayfair's projects on which plaintiff had already been working as a consultant for several months. Plaintiff was a full-time exempt employee and performed all of plaintiff's job duties satisfactorily before plaintiff was wrongfully terminated on or about November 24th, 2020. Plaintiff was hired pursuant to a written contract. A true and correct copy is attached here too. Prior to plaintiff agreeing to work for Wayfair as an employee, on information and belief, in and around January 30th, 2019, Wayfair and Baldoni had entered into a deal pursuant to which Baldoni sold a majority equity stake in WEL, which would in turn set up a $25 million content fund to fund future projects. In the press generated by this detail, it was expressly stated that WEL's executive team would remain in key roles and that Man Enough would be launching its second season shortly thereafter. There was no mention of WSL or the formation of a second or new entity. So let's just go back here and to WEL. Hang on. How the parties are. I just want to make sure I get this right. So we have Wayfair Studios LLC is WSL. Wayfair Entertainment LLC is WEL. So they're both Wayfair. Okay, just making sure. Okay, we got that. At the time, plaintiff was hired by Wayfair and given a written employment contract with a 2-year term, with an opportunity for equity participation after 3 years. Wayfair and Baldoni failed to disclose that Wayfair would cease to exist in less than a year's time. Well, it still exists. Wait, what? And that's where the legalese might come in, because I know there was 2 different types of Wayfair listed above. So giving employers an out should they choose to repudiate plaintiff's written employment contract in lieu of having plaintiff continue with Wayfair Studios LLC on the Man Enough series. Plaintiff would not have left his prior employment and given up other consulting opportunities to work for employers as a full-time employee if plaintiff had known that WEL was selling its assets, including Man Enough, to WSL, and were purportedly dissolved prior to the fulfillment of the 2-year term. Upon his hire, plaintiff was the only African American working for WEL, with the sole exception of the CEO, well, that's kind of a big exception, yes, D'Angela Proctor, the person who recruited plaintiff and who had already been working closely with plaintiff on Man Enough when plaintiff was consulting. I don't feel like that really bolsters their claim. I don't know. That's just me, man. Lulu Loveberry, thank you for the $15. It says thank you. No, thank you. Appreciate it. Salem's mom, hi. Thank you for the $10 donation for court documents. Oh, thank you for the bacon. Yep, appreciate that. Yeah, LA Superior Court charges at the butthole for these documents, but Pacer and like the documents I get for the Wayfair case and all that, it's like it doesn't cost that much, but all right. Let's see. Starting in late May 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, racial tensions spiked throughout the country, with protests taking place throughout the nation. Over the next several days, plaintiff made several complaints about the CFO, Brian Singer, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I'm going to say Singer because it looks like Singer, being tone deaf in meetings about the racial tensions. Mr. Singer himself had previously told plaintiff that it was very clear to him how white WEL was and how different plaintiff was from everyone else. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. It just, when it comes to the workplace and the racial stuff, I'm just kind of like, I'm very like conflicted, because on the one hand, it's like, I feel like everything should be merit-based, but on the other hand, I understand why that may not necessarily be the best answer ever. So, I don't want to get into politics though. We're just going to move on. On June 4th, in apparent response to plaintiff's complaints, another manager, Sarah Politis, took a screenshot of a post from plaintiff's personal Instagram page urging self-reflection on racism and sent it to Mr. Singer, insinuating that plaintiff believed Mr. Singer was a racist, even though the Instagram post was not directed at Mr. Singer or anyone in particular, but was a social commentary on inherent racial bias. So you got to be careful with your socials regarding your employer and stuff like that. If you're having an issue with your employer that's race related, and then you post like a thing on social media about racism, I mean, I can see why someone would make the leap there, even if this person genuinely wasn't talking about the guy in question. I can see why the connection was made. I don't know, man. I mean, it's a tricky subject for me. It's something I'll never really fully understand, to be honest. But you know, I'm going to try to remain impartial on that, but also point out that there may be some other stuff going on. And it's not necessarily absolutely a racist thing, but, you know, it's always possible. That's always a possibility. I don't know these people, so I don't know what they're like. But I guess my point is, I feel like maybe there's a separate issue there that I don't know about. Thereafter, plaintiff blocked Ms. Politis from accessing his Instagram account. Ms. Politis thereafter refused to communicate with plaintiff except in team meetings. Less than a month later, during a team meeting, the plaintiff protested Ms. Politis' inappropriate suggestions concerning exploiting Karamo Brown, a black gay man on the show Queer Eye, for the straight guy who was slated to be interviewed on Man Enough. Okay. Plaintiff protested the inappropriate suggestions concerning exploiting Karamo Brown. What does that mean? Maybe they'll explain. We'll see. So they had him on the black gay man instead of... Oh, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. Is that a separate show? What is that? Hold on. I just want to understand. No, I don't see any... Oh, it was initially broadcast as Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. I see. Wait, so then what's the problem? Her inappropriate suggestions concerning exploiting. What does exploiting mean? Oh, okay. Miss Paulides had suggested branding the show with rainbows and having Mr. Brown discuss racial issues, which was not the topic presented to Mr. Brown when he had agreed to participate. Okay. But these are clearly issues that were coming up as a huge topic during that time. Is that not maybe something to touch on? I don't know. I feel like that maybe is a good platform for him to use to touch on that and like get the message out there. I don't know. That's just me. And I'm obviously not going to be perfect on this because, like I said, I'm never going to understand the facets of racism and stuff like that the way, minorities will. But at the same time, I keep my mind open. Like, I don't think everything is racist. You know what I mean? So, okay. So, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. I never heard that before, guys. I actually did on my YouTube channel. It was called Cross-Eye. I called it Cross-Eye. And it was like my straight friends, including Bruce from Oregon, Snitzel Ninja might have been on there. I don't know, though. And Brad, the IT guy, were trying to help me class things up a little bit. That's currently a members only video. So if you're a member of this channel, you should be able to go back and find it. But yeah, that was earlier this year. All right. But I've never actually seen Queer Eye. I know that's a thing, but I've never seen it. So it's just not my kind of show. Okay. I don't know, man. All right. Miss Paulides had suggested branding the show with rainbows and having Mr. Brown discuss racial issues, which was not the topic presented when he agreed. The meeting became heated when plaintiff told Miss Paulides that it felt exploitive, to use the rainbow and force Mr. Brown to discuss racial issues simply because he was a black gay man. I could see why this topic was proposed, given the social climate at the time. I don't know. I don't know who Miss Paulides is or what her general demeanor is like, so I couldn't really say who's at fault here. I couldn't really say who's in the right in this situation. There's a equal chance that both people are exaggerating things to me because I don't know either one of them. So I've never seen the Queer Eye show. Yeah. All right. In response, Ms. Paulides rudely and abruptly ended the meeting and made a complaint against plaintiff for alleged bullying. In fact, what Ms. Paulides was calling bullying was plaintiff engaging in the protected activity of protesting Ms. Paulides' racism and her characterization of plaintiff as being an angry black man. In response to plaintiff's protected activities, Wayfair gave notice of his intent to terminate plaintiff's employment, effective September, with him to remain a consultant thereafter through the end of the year. Ultimately, Wayfair instead demoted plaintiff, cut his pay to only $10,000 per month, excuse me, and scheduled his termination to be effective December 31st. Plaintiff was ordered a separation agreement offering to forgive an alleged $9,000 debt. Here's where I have a real problem when I'm reading documents like this and payment information and stuff comes out. I'm like, you're making $10,000 a month? What the fuck? Take it and run, dude. Take it and run. Seriously. And I'm not talking about this person in particular because I really don't know the industry, to be honest. So I don't know what normal pay is like. But as far as like salaries and stuff like that, there are so many jobs that I look at and I'm like, I can't believe these people are making this much money, and there are paramedics saving their granny's life every other weekend that can't pay their rent. So like that to me is like what comes up whenever I see somebody's making this much per month. I'm like, I have a hard time having sympathy for anyone involved in this situation because wow, that's a lot of money. Jeez. All right. I mean, it's no penthouse, we were talking about last night with the Blake Lively stuff, and they were talking about the meeting in their apartment because the penthouse is just, please, let me into the penthouse to have some porridge. That's how I feel about that. All right. In stark contrast, during 2020, WEL had given notice of its intention to restructure its operations, the results of which would be separation of employment for several employees and the transition/rehiring of their remaining employees and sale of all projects to Wayfarer. Every employee who was separated or scheduled to separate from WEL was given a severance offer of 1 full year's salary, except for plaintiff. Other non-Black, that does sound a little weird to me. Why? Other non-Black employees who had been terminated even earlier in the year for cause had been given severance of 1 full year's salary. Every other employee who was scheduled to separate from WEL at the end of the year was maintained at their regular rate of pay and did not receive a pay cut. Plaintiff escalated his complaints to Baldoni, the owner/founder of WEL, and stated he felt targeted because of his race. Baldoni's response was to be supportive of plaintiff, to praise his work, to tell plaintiff that he wants to continue working with him, but Baldoni still failed to 1, revoke the pay cut, 2, offer plaintiff the severance the other employees had been offered, and or 3, offer to continue to honor plaintiff's written employment contract by having plaintiff hired by WSL to continue working on Man Enough after the restructure that had finally been disclosed. Again, guys, I want to point out this is the initial complaints. We are going to get into the responses and stuff like that. So as of October 29th, WL had still failed to 1, revoke the pay cut, 2, offer plaintiff the severance the other employees have been offered, 3, revoke the termination of plaintiff's employment with WEL, and 4, hired or offered to hire plaintiff to continue working under WSL. Plaintiff believed the decisions to demote him and cut his pay, offer plaintiff severance comparable to other employees, terminate his employment, and refuse to hire him for WSL was because of his race and for engaging in protected activities related to his race and the racial insensitivity of his coworkers. I notice we're not really getting any background on his kind of performance and behavior and stuff like that, but maybe we'll get there. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Plaintiff filed a complaint of employment discrimination. Okay. Alleging race discrimination or retaliation. On November 5th, WEL began to aggressively coerce plaintiff into executing a separation agreement and release that had previously been presented to him. Plaintiff refused to sign. Employers feigned ignorance of the DFEH complaint prior to November 5th. Okay. Complaint of employment discrimination with the DFEH. What is that? California Department of Fair Employment and Housing. Okay. I feel like I've heard that before for sure. Okay. On November 10th, employers requested plaintiff return company property within his possession, even though plaintiff was still employed and actively performing work. The next day, employers withdrew the request that plaintiff return equipment. Around the same time, employers removed plaintiff's producer credit from the WSL website for Man Enough, even though plaintiff had been credited as a producer on all of the prior episodes. Okay, but it doesn't sound like he was for sure going to continue on with the company, no? I mean, it sounds like that was a little up in the air. On November 19th, WL gave plaintiff notice that it had deducted $2,000 from his upcoming paychecks to repay funds advanced to Shane Norman Group, LLC, at the beginning of plaintiff's employment with WL before plaintiff had been properly set up on payroll. Plaintiff protested the unauthorized deduction from his paycheck, but Wayfair stated it would not reverse the deduction unless plaintiff agreed to a repayment plan. Plaintiff again protested that Wayfair's action of taking unauthorized deductions from his wages was illegal and needed to be reversed regardless of a repayment plan. Okay. Wayfair ultimately initiated a direct deposit to plaintiff to repay the funds it unlawfully deducted. 5 days later, employers terminated plaintiff's employment for purported and undisclosed performance reasons, of which employers had allegedly only recently learned. What are they? Can we talk about what they are? Any criticism of plaintiff's job performance is pretextual and contrived. Plaintiff performed satisfactorily at all times, and the quality of his work and or performance had never once been criticized, but had, in fact, been lauded, including by Baldoni himself. Plaintiff believes the decision to remove his producer credits, demand return of property, unlawfully deduct from his wages, and ultimately terminate his employment, even earlier than the December 31st, 2020 effective date, was in retaliation for engaging in protected activities related to his race and the racial insensitivity of his coworkers, including filing and serving a DFEH complaint, and refusing to release these claims against employers as part of a separation agreement. Employers' discriminatory and retaliatory animus is evidenced by the previously mentioned facts. And this is where I'm going to start. I'm going to skim over some stuff here, guys. Hold on. Okay. Defendant's conduct was undertaken, authorized, and or ratified. Defendant's officers, directors, managing agents, including but not limited to Baldoni, who were authorized and empowered to make decisions that reflect and or create policy for the defendants. The aforementioned conduct of said managing agents and individuals was therefore undertaken on behalf of defendants who further had advanced knowledge of the actions and conduct of said individuals whose actions and conduct were ratified, authorized, and approved by Baldoni. And I like how they're putting that in all caps every time. Baldoni! I almost want to shout it. And managing agents whose precise identities are unknown to plaintiff at this time, and therefore identified as designated herein as does 1 through 20 inclusive. Right. As a result of the actions, plaintiff has suffered and will continue to suffer general and special damages, including severe and profound pain and emotional distress, anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, tension, and other physical ailments, as well as medical expenses, expenses for psychological counseling and treatment, and past and future lost wages and benefits. As a result of the above, plaintiff is entitled to past and future lost wages, blah, blah, blah. We're going to skim through that. Okay. First cause of action for discrimination in violation of Government Code 12940. Like I said, we're going to skim over a lot of the legalese stuff. Okay. Right. Second cause of action was for retaliation in violation of the Government Code against defendants WL, WSL, and DOEs 1 through 20. Okay. Third cause of action, failure to prevent discrimination or retaliation in violation of Government Code 12940. Fourth cause for declaratory judgment against defendants WL, WSL, and DOEs 1 through 20. Okay. Plaintiff contends the defendants did discriminate and retaliate against plaintiff on the basis of plaintiff's race, engagement in protected activities, and or some combination of these protected characteristics, and that plaintiff was retaliated against and ultimately wrongfully terminated as a result of plaintiff's race, engagement in protected activities, and or some combination of these protected characteristics. Plaintiff is informed and believes, and on that basis alleges, that defendant shall dispute plaintiff's contentions. Fifth cause of action was retaliation. Okay. 6 for retaliation in violation of Labor Code 1102.5 and 1102.6. 7th, in violation of the public policy of the state of California for wrongful termination. 8th, for breach of written employment contract specified term against defendants WL, WSL, and DOEs 1 through 20 inclusive. 9th, for fraudulent inducement against all defendants. Okay. Defendants by and through Baldoni acting on defendants' behalf and at their express instruction fraudulently induced plaintiff to accept employment and enter into the contract by publicly representing that they had set up a $25 million content fund to fund future projects, while at the same time concealing that it intended to and had set up a new entity, WSL, to assume WEL's assets and dissolve WEL, rendering the 2-year term of plaintiff's contract illusory and meaningless. Okay. 10th cause for negligent misrepresentation against all defendants. Who the fuck is Wade? I don't know. All right. 11th cause for waiting time penalties, Labor Code 201 to 203 against all defendants. 12th cause, failure to permit inspection of personnel and payroll records, Labor Code 226 and 1198.5 against defendants WL, WSL, and DOEs 1 through 20 inclusive. Prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiff seeks judgment against defendants and each of them in an amount according to proof, but estimated to be no less than $1 million as follows. 1 for money judgment representing compensatory damages. 2 for civil penalties pursuant to Labor Code 98.6. 3 civil penalties for Labor Code. 4 for unpaid wages. 5 for waiting time penalties. 6 for statutory penalties. 7 for statutory penalties. And 8 for prejudgment interest on each of the foregoing. Wherefore, plaintiff further seeks judgment against defendants and each of them in an amount according to proof as follows. For a declaratory judgment, reaffirming plaintiff's equal standing under the law and condemning defendants' discriminatory practices, for injunctive relief barring defendants' discriminatory employment policies and practices in the future, and restoring plaintiff to plaintiff's former position with defendants. Wait. So he wants his job back? What's going on there? Injunctive relief and restoring his position? I'll have to ask a lawyer about that one. For punitive damages, for costs of suit attorney's fees and expert witness fees, for post-judgment interest, and for any other relief that is just and proper. All right. And this is his offer of employment that he included here. And like I said, I'm going to post these documents on my Patreon for free. You don't have to be a paid member of Patreon to sign up for it. The link is in my video description. So if you want to read through that document in full, you can. I'm going to get into some of this other stuff, though, that we have. And like I said, we're not going to read through every single document that I got tonight, but you will have access to it. So give me 1 sec. I have big news. I got to legally name my friend's child Salmon. For the best uncle in the world. That's awesome. Oh, man. Okay. This is what we just read, so we don't have to worry about missing that. Let's see. So this is the notice of motion to strike portions of the complaint. But there was a first amended complaint and there was a second amended complaint. So what I want to do is get down to the second amended complaint, and we'll go from there. One sec. Let's see. Answer to the second complaint. There's a lot of pages here, guys. Bear with me. And then we'll see if there's any difference between the first complaint and the second. Hold on, I have a better idea for how to find it quickly. Okay, I think I got it. Oh my lord. There's more of these terrible documents. Bear with me here, guys. I think this is it. Yeah, it is. Okay. So we just got to get up to page 1. Here we go. Here's the amended complaint. Okay. And there's a demand for a jury trial, but as we know, this did not go to jury trial. So I have bad news for you guys. I have to go to the bathroom. Sorry, but when was this filed? It was filed in 2020, but I just got these documents because this story is resurfacing to try to prove that Justin has a dark and racist past or something. So I'm going to play something for you guys while I go to the bathroom. Give me 1 second. I'll pick. Yeah, I have an idea. I hate that I have to do this, but it's just like when I have no one else on the stream with me to read, I have to. Yes, here we go. Oh, that's not what I meant. You guys might like this story. Basically, I play story time when I have to go to the bathroom for you guys. See the transcript. Whoops. Sorry, guys. I know the wait is annoying, but... Okay. So while I'm going to the bathroom, here is an excerpt from my middle school diary. I will be right back. So weird. Okay. Yeah. Oh no, here's Chris again. We're back to Chris now. We like Chris. Okay. Oh no, nope. Sean's on the back. Don't worry, guys. Sean hasn't gone anywhere. He's still in the mix. Oh my god, I remember when guys were the enemy. What are you talking about? You're a child. Sean's IM, and I wrote Sean's AIM name here. I talked to him for 3 hours. Wow, that was probably a big thing for me. And then I wrote guys I really like, and there's about 5 people listed here again. Like, half these people I barely ever talked to. I just looked at them, I think. We're just like, I love your hair. All right. Oh, good. Cute guys in my grade. Hottest has the star. It says Tanner, Connor, Chad. Who the fuck is Chad? Who's Chad? Sean with the star, of course. Chris, other Chris, Bobby, Stephen, Tanner, Madison, Hunter, Kyle, and TJ. Was my middle school class even that big? I went to a very small school from like pre-K to 8th grade, but okay. I asked Chris M out. What I did? What did I do that for? That was a bad idea. But he said he was going to ask out Heather. So I didn't get an answer, but Heather said no, LOL. That's awesome. Oh no. Today I slipped in the dirt and Clara laughed. I'm going to text Clara about that because I still talk to her. I pulled her down with me. Okay, and then I have a thing here that says, in memory of my best friend, Katie. Truly great friends are hard to find, difficult to leave, but impossible to forget. Gone since January 20th, 2006. She didn't die. She moved to Tampa. Like, what the fuck? That sounded so bad. Oh my god. It's January 20th today. You're right. So this was exactly 20 years ago. Huh? Well, in memory of my friend Katie, who did not die, but went to Tampa 20 years ago. It's been 20 years since she's been gone. Still think about her. Not really. I mean, she's cool now. She's cool. She did beat me for like everything. It was always the two of us trying to get like the lead spot in the play or trying to be class president, and she always fucking won. I was always second place, and I was so mad. But she was still so fun, and so like we had so much fun together. But she moved to Tampa, and I was like, my time to shine, bitch. I guess. All right. I can actually talk to Sean over the CPU. I hope I never talk to that boy again. I hope I never disturbed him with my presence. More hearts than Sean. More hearts than Sean. God. All right. He actually ended up marrying someone we were in that class with. So I guess it worked out for someone else. Okay. Monday, February 13th, 2006. 2006. I was about to say that doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know if I could even write this much in 2000. 2006. Okay. Almost Valentine's Day. I put a Valentine on Sean's desk while everyone else was gone. But he knows I like him. I signed it anonymous. Lizzie told him it was me, not the Lizzie I'm obsessed with, a different Lizzie. I'm just not reading last names. I'm leaving him a note with this poem I found on iconator.com. Oh no. Oh no is right. Okay. All right. Anyways, back to our regularly scheduled broadcast. That was bad. So my commercial breaks, they're not ads. They're bad stories about myself. All right. 1 sec. Okay. We'll see if they put anything else in the second amended complaint here. There we go. Just want to make sure everyone can read. Okay, we have the parties. Okay, I'm going to skip over all this stuff we have already read for sure. Factual allegations. Okay. That. I'm just looking for stuff that's different from the initial complaint. As part of these recruitment efforts, WL CEO Angela Proctor introduced plaintiff to Steven Sarowitz for an impromptu job interview. At the time, on information and belief, Miss Proctor had also not been told there was a separate entity, WSL, that had already been created, and which was the entity to which Mr. Sorowitz's investment had been funneled, leaving WEL purposefully undercapitalized and lacking the ability to satisfy its obligations, including the terms of the employment contract ultimately given to plaintiff. On December 19th, 2019, Mr. Sorowitz was introduced and identified as Wayfarer's investor. And we know who Sorowitz is. He's the one that Blake Lively wrote in her filing that, about the alleged Hamas-related statement, which was just bizarre. You should have Kurtz on your show. Yeah, I would love to, but she seems like she's busy right now. So maybe some other time if she has time. Okay. Mr. Sarwitz told plaintiff that Wayfarer was the next phase in his life for meaning and purpose, that he had heard a lot of good things about plaintiff from Ms. Proctor and stated, "We'd like to see what you can build," referring to the Man Enough proposal that plaintiff had put together as a consultant. Mr. Sarwitz told plaintiff he had plaintiff's proposal and had discussed it with Baldoni. They're still capitalizing his name entirely for some reason. Mr. Sarwitz also told plaintiff, "We need somebody here who looks like you." Man, this guy has allegedly said some pretty wild shit. But all right. There's no proof of that to my knowledge thus far. But Mr. Sarwitz did not disclose that his meeting with plaintiff was on behalf of WSL and for WSL's benefit. WSL was never mentioned, and Mr. Sarwitz only spoke in terms of the omnibus Wayfarer and the collective we. Shortly thereafter, Baldoni requested to interview plaintiff for purposes of persuading plaintiff to leave his existing employment to come work for him on the Man Enough project. During the interview, Baldoni told plaintiff that Wayfarer has been his dream from the beginning, and that Baldoni's acting was only secondary to his dream, which was to create meaningful content. Baldoni expressly mentioned Clouds, the project that Baldoni was filming at that moment, and which had expressly been mentioned in the prior press releases concerning the $25 million content fund set up for Wayfarer, as an example of the type of meaningful content Baldoni was creating through Wayfarer. During the recruitment process, plaintiff told Baldoni he was concerned about relinquishing a secure and well-paying full-time job with a better-known celebrity than Baldoni. You dick. Where plaintiff had already worked for 2 years. Plaintiff expressly told Baldoni that he had reservations in leaving the security of his current employment, but was interested in helping build, leading, and having equity in a project like Man Enough as a long-term endeavor. As a condition of possibly leaving his employment to work for Baldoni and ultimately agreeing to a salary that was a little less than plaintiff was earning at his current employment, plaintiff required Baldoni's assurances that the job would be secure, that plaintiff would have the opportunity to receive equity in the Man Enough brand and would receive significant bonuses, that plaintiff would be leadership with respect to the Man Enough brand. In response to concerns, Baldoni assured plaintiff that Baldoni could make that, the equity, opportunity, bonuses, leadership, happen at Wayfarer, which was well funded. Baldoni expressly told plaintiff that he was aware plaintiff had met with Mr. Sarwitz, expressly referred to Mr. Sarwitz's investment, which had been the subject of the press releases about WEL's content fund, and stated that because of Mr. Sarwitz's investment into Wayfarer, we can do whatever we want, including by taking Man Enough to the next level. Baldoni told plaintiff that he had always wanted to do something more with Man Enough, but had never had somebody with the right vision until plaintiff. Baldoni's intention was to convince plaintiff that the employment opportunity Baldoni was proposing was not a fly-by-night opportunity, and that the opportunity was secure enough to entice plaintiff to leave his employment and work on Man Enough. Okay. Baldoni authorized Ms. Proctor to present plaintiff with a 2-year employment contract. When plaintiff initially rejected the employment contract because it did not reflect a leadership role, giving him the unimpressive title of general manager. Wow. Guys, I get that people in this business, they have different problems than we do, but still, when I see general manager, I'm not like, I'm unimpressed. And I understand people who are used to working for a higher salary in a business that's more, lucrative and all that. They might think that's unimpressive, but still. All right. Did not reflect a high enough annual base salary. What was it, 40 million? No, it wasn't that much. Would have been like 6 figures, though. It did not reflect a generous enough bonus structure. Baldoni authorized WEL to revise the contract such that it reflected a more impressive leadership role. Title of General Manager / EVP Strategy and Innovation, and an annual salary that was 12.5% higher than the first offer, though still lower than plaintiff's then salary with his current employer, and a promise to revisit the bonus structure after 60 days. These concessions on paper were made for the express purpose of addressing plaintiff's concern and assuring plaintiff that the job would be secure, that plaintiff would receive significant bonuses, and the plaintiff would be leadership with respect to the Man Enough brand. At the time Baldoni made the assurances, Baldoni was aware of the falsity of this statement. In fact, WSL was well-funded, but WEL, the entity designated by defendants to be plaintiff's employer, was not. At the time, Baldoni assured plaintiff that the employment opportunity was not a fly-by-night opportunity. I feel like we just read that. Baldoni was aware of the falsity. Okay. Concealed he had formed WSL with Mr. Sarowitz, and that all of WEL's assets, including Man Enough, would soon be transferred to WSL, and that WEL would cease to exist in less than a year's time. At the time, Baldoni made assurances to plaintiff about job security. Baldoni was aware of the fault. Okay, you keep saying that. Can you say something else? Okay. Based on Baldoni's representations, plaintiff did resign his existing employment and, consistent with the contract, commenced employment with employers on March 1st. Plaintiff would not have left his prior employment and given up the ability to work on other consulting opportunities to work for employers as a full-time employee if plaintiff had known that WEL was selling its assets, including Man Enough, to WSL and would purportedly dissolve prior to the fulfillment of the 2-year term and long before plaintiff could earn the equity interest that Baldoni had assured plaintiff he could achieve. Plaintiff also would not have left his prior employment and given up the ability to work on other consulting opportunities to work for employers as a full-time... Okay, I feel like they're repeating statements a lot here. Is that just me? Does anyone else feel like that? What document is this? This is that lawsuit where the reporters are alleging this is like Justin's racist and dark past. It was a 2020 lawsuit by an ex-employee, and we're just going through it. Okay. All right. On June 4th, in apparent response to plaintiff's complaints, another manager, Sarah Politis, took a screenshot of a post from plaintiff's personal Instagram page urging self-reflection on racism and sent it to Mr. Singer, insinuating that plaintiff believed Mr. Singer was racist, even though the Instagram post was not directed at Mr. Singer or anyone in particular, but was a social commentary on inherent racial bias. Now, guys, I'm interested to see what the other party said about that, because I think we all know that some of us subtweet or sub-post at people, and it's obvious who you're talking about. So I don't know. But I don't know what the context was, so I guess we'll wait and see. Okay. Thereafter, plaintiff blocked Ms. Politis from accessing his Instagram account. Ms. Politis thereafter refused to communicate with plaintiff except in team meetings. Well, if you block someone, therefore you don't want to talk to them anymore, wouldn't it make sense that they don't want to talk to you outside of work contexts? I mean, that's just my thought. We saw that. Okay, the severance. And remember, this is the second amended complaint now, so we're just looking for stuff that wasn't in the first one. First cause of action, discrimination, retaliation, failure to prevent discrimination and retaliation. And I think this is the one they're claiming had to do with Justin. I'm not positive, though. No, he doesn't name Justin there. Fourth cause for declaratory judgment against defendants WL, WSL, and DOES. Fifth, violation of labor code. 6, wrongful termination. 7th, breach of written employment contract. 8th, fraudulent inducement against all defendants. Okay. Defendants by and through Baldoni, acting on all defendants' behalf and at their express instruction, fraudulently induced plaintiff to accept employment with WEL. Okay. So I still don't see anything about Justin in here that's like, he's racist. You know what I mean? Plaintiff is informed and believes, and on that basis alleges, that in committing the aforementioned acts and concealments, defendants, including Baldoni, for their fraudulent misrepresentations and or concealments, are guilty of oppression, fraud, and malice towards him. Okay. 9th cause for waiting time penalties. 10th cause, failure to permit inspection of personnel and payroll records. Okay. And then the relief is still no less than $1 million. Okay. Okay. These are the demurs. Hang on. Let's see if there's anything here we want to read through tonight. And I'll do a little recap of like all the documents that I got later. I just want to go through the main stuff tonight. This is motion to strike. Okay, so the Wayfair parties, in this case, they filed a motion to strike portions of the complaint. Let's see what they were. What are we talking about here? Lauren searched the word racism. Rob, I could do that, but there's going to be a lot of stuff in here with that. And a lot of it's not pertaining to Justin at all, because as you can see, there are multiple defendants in this case. So I want to just move through this part here and see. They had a motion to strike, paragraphs, and then they have a bunch of paragraphs listed here. Okay. The prayer for punitive damages of plaintiff's second amended complaint because plaintiff has failed to plead adequate facts showing oppression, fraud, or malice. Okay. This is the support of the demurs. Okay. Oh, fraudulent. Okay. All right. Hang on. Okay. So here's the arguments for that. And this is from the Wayfair side. Plaintiff's continued claim for fraudulent inducement should be demurred again without leave to amend because plaintiff still failed to plead the elements to sustain a fraudulent inducement claim, nor has he done so with the required specificity. First, and perhaps most significantly, one of the elements of a fraud action is a showing of resulting damage. Indeed, it is well settled that plaintiff asserting fraud is required to establish a complete causal relationship between the alleged misrepresentations and the harm claimed to have resulted therefrom. In this case, it is beyond dispute that the plaintiff cannot satisfy the damages element of his fraudulent inducement claim. As explained in defendant's prior demurs, plaintiff does not and cannot allege that he was terminated or suffered harm because of the alleged transfer of Men Enough to WSL or because WEL was allegedly underfunded, as he must, to sustain this claim, whatever that means. In the second amended complaint, plaintiff alleges he suffered damages from the alleged fraud because he resigned from his existing employment and commenced employment with WEL on March 1st. Suffered unspecified damages and general damages in an amount to be proven at trial, suffered mental pain and anguish, and was prejudiced in his rights and has incurred and will incur in the future special damages. But plaintiff provides no context or explanation as to how these conclusory claims of damage have anything to do with the alleged fraud. Okay. Admittedly, the parties strongly disagree as to the reasons WEL terminated plaintiff's employment. Plaintiff alleges he was terminated due to alleged unlawful reasons set forth in the second amendment complaint, while Wayfarer argues it terminated plaintiff's employment for serious performance and conduct issues. But critically, neither party suggests, nor could they, that plaintiff was terminated for reasons related to the funding of WEL or the transfer of Man Enough to WSL. Consequently, Baldoni's and Sarowitz's alleged statements to plaintiff about WEL's funding, even if such statements occurred and were not true, and their alleged failure to disclose the existence of WSL to plaintiff, are statements or omissions without consequence. As an initial matter, defendants deny that they had any duty to discuss the existence of WSL with plaintiff, or that such alleged non-disclosure is sufficient to establish a fraud claim in the employment context. Furthermore, neither party claims that the plaintiff's employment was terminated or that he was otherwise harmed due to any alleged underfunding or business restructuring. Indeed, for plaintiff to make such a claim would be inconsistent with his claims throughout the rest of the SAC that he was terminated for a variety of alleged unlawful reasons, as opposed to his unacceptable performance or any underfunding or business restructuring. Put simply, the alleged misrepresentations were not the proximate cause of any alleged damage plaintiff sustained, and plaintiff's fraud claim fails for this reason alone. Although plaintiff's failure to show resulting damage is enough to sustain defendant's demurrer, plaintiff's fraudulent inducement claims fails for additional reasons. First, he failed to identify the alleged affirmative misrepresentation. Plaintiff does not allege that Baldoni, Sarowitz, or anyone else made any promises to him about the financial strength of WEL specifically. Furthermore, in the SAC, the second amended complaint, plaintiff alleges WSL was formed on September 10th, 2019, which is nearly 5 months before plaintiff began working for WEL. Consequently, information regarding WSL was public knowledge and readily available to plaintiff at the time he accepted WEL's job offer. Similarly, it was objectively unreasonable for plaintiff to have relied on any press generated about Wayfair in January 2019, more than a year before his February 2020 job offer. As multiple factors pertinent to WEL's business could change during that extended period. Although plaintiff states that he required Baldoni's assurances that the job with WEL would be secure and that plaintiff would be given a leadership position with equity and bonus opportunities, plaintiff fails to advise that the court what Baldoni specifically said, with the exception of the terms already set forth. For all of these reasons, plaintiff cannot show that Baldoni, Sarowitz, or anyone else made misrepresentations to him, or that he reasonably relied on Baldoni or Sarowitz's general statements regarding Wayfair. Plaintiff does not allege he was terminated because of the alleged funding or the alleged transfer of Man Enough to WEL, or that his employment would have ended solely due to a transfer of Man Enough from WEL to WSL. His repeated failure to overcome the pleading defects in his fraudulent inducement claim proves there is no set of facts that would enable him to state a claim for relief. Okay. Joint employer, we'll skip that. Oh my gosh, this is long. Plaintiff fails to establish any alter ego theory between WEL and WSL. Okay. Okay, and this is the support of their motion to strike some of the Second Amendment complaint. Plaintiff began his employment with Wayfair Entertainment on or about March 1st, 2020 as the general manager of Man Enough. Okay, he was terminated in November 2020 for unsatisfactory performance. As relevant to this motion, plaintiff alleges in his SAC that the following occurred during or after his employment. He was discriminated against because of his race. He was retaliated against for complaining about race discrimination and filing a DEFH complaint. The defendants breached their duty to take steps to prevent discrimination or retaliation. That he was retaliated against for reporting suspected violations of the labor code to WEL. That he was wrongfully terminated in violation of California public policy. that he was fraudulently induced to accept employment, that he is owed waiting time penalties, and that defendants failed to permit him to inspect his personnel and payroll records within the time required by law. We're going to skip over the legalese a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to post this later so you guys can go through the whole thing if you want to. I'm just going to skip some of that super pointed legal stuff tonight. Okay. What is this one? This is the answer to the Second Amendment complaint from Wayfair. General denial. Pursuant to Code of Civil Procedure Section 431, defendant files this general denial and denies generally and specifically each and every material allegation contained in the SAC. Defendant further denies plaintiff has been damaged. Okay. Defendant maintains robust anti-discrimination, anti-harassment, anti-retaliation, and anti-bullying policies and strictly prohibits discrimination, harassment, retaliation, and bullying. Defendant expects respectful treatment of all employees, and its policies reflect its commitment to creating a respectful workplace. Consistent with its policies, defendant encourages employees to immediately report any form of discrimination, harassment, or retaliation to certain members of management. Despite plaintiff's knowledge, he did not use those complaint procedures to complain about any alleged discrimination during his employment. So this is another case of, why didn't you file a complaint? And that's just my interpretation of that. Like I said, legally, is this not my first language? So, what did I miss here, Zach? You should hear what she calls me. Cunt? All right. Candace Owens suggests Ryan is in a real... You mean a relationship? Or with Hugh Jackman? And Blake maybe with Taylor Swift? That's... Nah, guys. I don't think so, man. I'm going to say no to that one. I support the gay couples. Get it? I'm gay. So, like, cool. But I don't think that's the case. I'm going to disagree with Candace on that one. Nah. Okay. Prior to hiring plaintiff, a defendant and plaintiff signed a revised offer letter. Oh, there was a revised offer letter. Okay. Defendant denies that such a letter constitutes a binding employment agreement. Okay, that makes sense. Plaintiff's offer letter did not include all terms regarding his offer of employment. Okay. I'm just kind of skimming through the stuff that relates to Justin specifically, because there's a lot of stuff just about Wayfair in general in here. Okay, these are affirmative defenses and other defenses. This was the, remember, answer to the Second Amendment complaint. First defense, failure to state a claim. As a separate defense to the SAC and each cause of action therein, the defendant alleges that the SAC fails to state facts sufficient to constitute a cause of action or claim upon which relief can be granted. That is a mouthful. Okay, sorry. Second defense, failure to exhaust administrative remedies. As a separate defense to the SAC, to the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, ninth, and 10th causes of action. Defendant alleges that plaintiff's claims are barred in whole or in part to the extent plaintiff failed to exhaust his administrative remedies, failed to bring a timely claim, and or to the extent plaintiff failed to comply with prerequisites to suit. Third defense, consent and ratification. As a separate defense to the SAC and each cause of action therein, defendant alleges that plaintiff approved, consented to, and or ratified some or all of the actions now complained of. Fourth defense, waiver. As a separate defense to the SAC and each cause of action therein, defendant alleges that plaintiff released, relinquished, waived, and or abandoned any right to any of the claims upon which plaintiff now seeks relief. Okay. Fifth defense was, what is estoppel? Hold on. Estoppel is a legal doctrine that prevents someone from contradicting their previous statements or actions. It can also prevent someone from going back on their word or making a claim that contradicts a previous judicial ruling. Huh. Well, all right then. I had never heard that word before, but okay. One sec, guys. There we go. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix something real quick. There we go. Okay. Sixth defense, unclean hands / after acquired evidence in part delicto. As a separate defense to the SAC and each cause of action therein, defendant alleges that plaintiff's SAC causes of action and or requests for damages are barred in whole or in part by the equitable doctrines of unclean hands, after acquired evidence, or in pari delicto. Seventh defense was failure to mitigate. Eighth, no protected activity. Ninth, managerial discretion. 10th, mixed motive. Okay, what does that mean? Okay. 11th, set off, offset, recoupment, and accord and satisfaction. 12th, failure to use ordinary care and diligence. And 13th, business judgment. 14th, defendant's reasonable care. Okay. 15th, at-will employment. 16th, good cause. Okay, so here it says defendant alleges that plaintiff's employment was terminated for good cause. Okay. 17th, God, there's so many defenses. 17th, recovery of penalties. 18th, constitutionality of penalties. 19th, no causation. 20th, no oppression, fraud, or malice. 21st, failure to allege facts sufficient for punitive and other damages. 22nd, defendant's good faith precludes punitive damages. 23rd, spoliation of evidence. What does that mean? Okay. As a separate defense to the SAC and each cause action therein, upon information belief, defendant alleges that any recovery on plaintiff's SAC or plaintiff's SAC, I'm sorry, SAC is second amended complaint, but my bad, on recovery on plaintiff's SAC, or any claims or purported causes of action for relief alleged therein are barred in whole or part due to plaintiff's intentional or negligent acts or omission causing spoliation of evidence material to his claims, including but not limited to plaintiff's deletion and or destruction of data and information stored on his work iPad. 24th, oh my God, 24th defense, failure to perform plaintiff's breach of any alleged contract. 25th, no private right of action. 26th, good faith belief that additional wages are not due. 27th, not entitled to inspect personnel file after a lawsuit filed. Okay. 28th, impossibility of performance. 29th, lack of injury suffered. 30th, no protected activity under Labor Code Section 1102.5. 31st, defense, business necessity. 32nd, right to allege other affirmative defenses or defenses. Whew, okay. Prayer for relief. Wherefore, defendant prays that the court grant the following relief. 1, the plaintiff's SAC be dismissed. I'm a child. I'm sorry. The plaintiff's SAC be dismissed with prejudice, and the plaintiff take nothing thereby. 2, that the judgment be entered in favor of defendants on all claims. 3, defendant be awarded its attorney's fees and costs. And 4, for other such further relief as the court may deem proper. What ethnicity is the person filing the complaint? It's a black man. This case is boring. They can't use it in court anyways. Yeah, I mean, it's a little boring, but I feel like it was important to read through the lawsuit and like actually know what was going on so that I can like point to those legacy media items and say, hey, that's actually not what happened, you know, rather than say, well, TMZ said, you know. So that's just me. I feel like that's a necessary step for me. All right. What is this one? This was a cross complaint. Okay. In and around December 2019, WEL alleged plaintiff as a consultant through plaintiff's company Shane Norman Group. On March 2nd, 2020, WEL hired plaintiff as a full-time employee to work on its Man Enough brand. Okay. During his employment, plaintiff reported to WL CEO about the same time that he began working, the COVID-19 pandemic began, and some of WL's new hire paperwork was not sent to plaintiff as quickly as it usually would have been, particularly because plaintiff was already set up in WL's system as an independent contractor. Okay. On or about March 10th, plaintiff and WL CEO Brian Singer agreed that WL would provide plaintiff with a $10,000 advance to cover his pay. Accordingly, on March 12th, WL provided plaintiff with a $10,000 advance. On March 23rd, Singer emailed plaintiff a welcome packet and asked plaintiff to complete the attached paperwork. Inadvertently, Singer did not include the attachments with his email. Plaintiff did not notify Singer that the attachments were not included until April 15th. On March 27th, plaintiff requested another $10,000 advance. God, are you gambling? What are you doing? From WL because he had not completed the required paperwork and was going to miss payroll again. Plaintiff advised Singer that he would submit the payroll paperwork later that day, but failed to do so. On March 27th, WL provided plaintiff with a second $10,000 advance. God, can I have $20,000 advance? I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do for it, but I'll figure it out. Okay. Like I said, we're just scrolling through stuff that's really related to Justin, so I don't want to go through all that right now, but you guys can read through it later if you have a desire to look through all this. Conversion. So there are cross claims for conversion. Plaintiff intentionally and substantially interfered with WL's ownership of these funds by knowingly and intentionally taking possession of funds that were owned by WL and not repaying those amounts to WL. So in the plaintiff's complaint, where he's complaining, he's like, this unfounded $9,000 allet that he debt. Allet? Where did that word come from? That $9,000 debt that he allegedly owed. He's saying that was bullshit, but then they're explaining here, no, he got $20,000 in advance. Okay. Cross-claim 2, restitution based on unjust enrichment. Okay. Plaintiff received unearned benefits in the form of $9,000 from his conversion of a portion of WL's advance and his failure to repay those funds. All right. See what this was. A lot of legalese here. All right. We're down to the notice of rulings and court orders, which is going to say how this all ends. Let me make sure that was the last thing on here. Yeah, there is. Okay, so this is how this ended up. And you can see, like, even though the newspapers are now characterizing this as a suit against Justin, most of it had nothing to do with him, really. I mean, there was maybe in the beginning that, like, kind of vague claim that he was not helpful, I guess, in the reports of racist practices, but that was the complaint. That was the one-sided document. We don't have the other answer to that. I mean, it's probably somewhere in here, and I'll have to dig around for it. But as far as this goes, I want to show you how this ended. Okay. Yeah, notice of rulings and court orders. Okay. I know I saw it here earlier, so give me one sec. Yeah, here it is. As a result of the foregoing, the court entered an order of dismissal without prejudice as to defendant Justin Baldoni. Attached hereto is Exhibit B, and incorporated herein is a true and correct copy of the order of dismissal filed on September 10th. And they said case management was to continue on 9/27. So the case continued, but it was dropped against Justin, I guess. That's my interpretation. If anyone else has a different interpretation, please let me know. But yeah. Yeah, here it is. On the motion of the court, it is hereby ordered that the within action is dismissed without prejudice as to Justin Baldoni. So, like I said, I'm going to post all of those for you guys to go through everything if you want. But most of that was like nothing related to, well, most of it was related to like contractual stuff, business stuff, not related to so much the racism cause. And most of it was not really Justin. You know what I mean? It was about Wayfair and their restructuring. 1 second, guys. Zach, thank you for the $5. Ralphie, obviously you've been using Play shampoo. Your hair looks like crap. Well, I did it just for you. So thank you, Zach. Oops, my bad. Let's put that away. Okay. So now what I want to do is move on to some more fun story time and conversation, just hanging out with friends. So I'm going to send you guys over to the Tilted Lawyer, Omar Serrato, my buddy who's been on my streams. As soon as this stream ends, it'll redirect you over there. And I'm going to go join him, but I am going to take a quick break before I do that. It'll be 5 or 10 minutes. So please send lots of bacons and robots to let him know the Bacon Bot Army is in the chat and let him know that Lethal Lore 904 sent you. And I will join you guys over there very shortly. You'll hear lots of interesting stories and takes from me and my friends that are just going to hang out there, and you guys can ask us questions and anything like that. But please send him some love, lots of bacons, lots of robots, and I'll see you in just a couple minutes if you join me. Okay?